Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Button Mashing. It's the 17th of March. My name is James, I'm your host, and today with me I've got Carl.
Hello.
There he is. So, apologies before we get going today. We haven't done one of these for a few weeks. Unfortunately, life got in the way and we've just been a bit busy. But we are now back on it, trying to get these out weekly again for you. And we've got quite a bit to talk about today. So first of all, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch, which launched on the 3rd of March. I caved and bought one, despite everything that I've said in previous episodes and on our other podcast. So we'll talk about my impressions of that, as well as some of the controversy around the launch. We're talking about Horizon Zero Dawn and our impressions of that, which also came out the same week. We both played it, we loved it, and we'll tell you a bit more about that later on. We're covering the Xbox One announcement a few weeks ago about the Game Pass subscription service coming to Xbox One in the near future, and what we think of that. And we've got Mass Effect's facial expressions and some of the controversy around the graphics of the new Mass Effect Andromeda, due for release in the next week or so. So Carl, let's kick off with the Nintendo Switch. You called me out on this. You predicted it.
Of course.
And it happened. It's inevitable.
It did indeed.
So, yes. So I if you watched the Nintendo Switch announcement reveal we did, just to give you the backstory on this, about an hour into that announcement, I had pre-ordered one from Amazon. And by the time the announcement had finished, I decided to cancel it for varying good reasons. Which until about a week ago I stood by, and then due to all the coverage and all the press that the Switch was getting, and a few personal reasons of my own in terms of, I guess, my social life suiting or feeling like I suited a Switch, I decided to buy one. I even went and bought the version with the hand controls in the blue and red, the neon version, which I also slammed in the announcement video. So basically I've been a complete hypocrite and went against everything I said I would do and bought one. So a couple of weeks ago I pre-ordered it on Amazon. Within a few days it turned up, which was great. So they were out of stock initially, but then it came back in. And I bought with that a case. I bought one to Switch to try that out, even though I know that the reviews were sort of fair to middling on that one. Zelda, obviously, had to buy Zelda. I've since bought Snipper
Everyone
Clips.
should buy Zelda.
Everyone should buy Zelda. Since bought Snipper Clips and also a screen protector for various reasons, and we'll talk about that in a second. So, Carl, just to give you an opportunity to talk here, otherwise it will just be half an hour of me talking about the Switch. Your thoughts about all of this and what you've read about the Switch since it released?
Well, I haven't really read that much. I've just heard little bits from different people. I watched a few little streams of Zelda. I couldn't tell whether these were on the Switch or the Wii U, although I think sometimes when they paused it and saved it, it gave you a little Switch console view, so I could tell that they were using the Switch. Yeah. Obviously, as probably you mentioned previously, I haven't owned a Nintendo console since the GameCube. And I wasn't really fussed about owning one really, especially the Wii. I thought that was just a gimmick. The Wii U just kind of felt just like the Wii again, but I kind of fancy a Switch. Maybe that's just to play Zelda, and whether I'd actually have it and never use it is one of those things. Whether I had it play Zelda and then never used it again is another one of those things as well. I don't really know, but no, I do fancy one. It looks cool. Obviously, if I commuted a lot like you did on the train and stuff, I'd probably get the use out of it. But I don't, and I can't use a Nintendo Switch while driving, so it's not something I'm going to be purchasing yet. No. When it goes a little bit cheaper, I could possibly pick one up, but at the moment, no.
And you kind of hit the nail on the head there. The reason I decided to go for this, well, a couple of things inspired me, to be honest, and weirdly Horizon Zero Dawn was one of them. But we'll come on to talk about that later. But the main reason that was a part of the inspiration was that I really, really enjoyed and still am enjoying Horizon Zero Dawn. I need to put the hours in. Haven't played it for a while just due to, again, life getting in the way. But that open world exploration is something that normally doesn't appeal to me. Really, really like that in Horizon. But got frustrated that I couldn't play it whenever I wanted to. I get limited amount of downtime in my working day with having a child and a household to look after as well as a job. So, it was really tricky, and I found myself struggling to get the hours in. And I thought, actually, the appeal with the Switch is its portability, the fact that I could play console quality games, not necessarily visually, and we'll come on to that, but console quality gaming on the move when I had the time in those finite windows that I get. So I do a bit of commuting for work, you touched on it there. The train to and from every day, it's best part of an hour each way. Then when I have to do longer journeys to other offices, I do the same, a couple of hours on the train. I can fill some time with that then. So it's a perfect tool for me to play on the move. The whole docking and undocking piece is obviously a great benefit, being able to come home and carry on that experience if you want to. Obviously, it's up against my Xbox and my PlayStation. So in terms of my attention at home, it's probably not going to get as much. But that quality on the move, to be able to play a proper game and get immersed in a world and know I can come back to it over and over, which has been a frustration with Horizon, has been brilliant. So Zelda, I mean, I've only played to this point now 3 or 4 hours. I've only had it, Zelda itself since the start of this week.
Yeah.
3 or 4 hours. Really enjoying it. It's a fascinating concept. Visually, graphics aren't great. You know, it looks pretty because the art style allows it to be.
Yeah, I thought it looked quite good.
But side by side
it
with
looked
Horizon,
like a Zelda game.
Yeah, side by side with Horizon doesn't scratch it. Not even close.
No,
and on the small screen, it looks beautiful. Put it on the dock and put it on your normal screen, and the visuals aren't as impressive. Like, you know, I did notice this distinct difference between playing Horizon on my home screen and playing Zelda. But on the move, it's great. On that little screen, it's perfect. And I guess you can't afford to have too much detail on a screen that small for fear of, you know, not being able to see things properly.
Yeah.
Hardware-wise?
A lot of frame rate drops were saying people were getting from it being ducked.
Yeah, I'd heard that was one of the many sort of hardware reports that have come out since it launched. I played it for about 45 minutes in the dock and I wasn't doing any real combat or anything that would stretch it. So
yeah,
I can't.
It depends what you're doing.
I say I can't comment on that, but there's enough people saying it's true that it probably is. There's a number of things that have been reported about it. So there's the sort of hardware, the screen scratching in the dock piece. Now I've been very careful with mine because I've read about that, and I've since today actually my screen protector turned up. I went for one of the tempered glass ones rather than the plastic films. The one I bought went on really, really well. It's by I think it's Orsley, I think they're called. I'm trying to think now, try to see if I've got it to hand. I haven't. They're called Orsley, a really good one. I think it was about 10 15 quid maybe on Amazon. Took a while to turn up, but it was really good. I bought a case obviously to transport mine around to avoid any damage to the console itself. There's obviously we've got the left Joy-Con syncing issues that have been heavily reported. Can't say I've had that yet. But again,
well, I suppose if you've only had 45 minutes with it in a dock, you're not really going to.
Well, no, but bear in mind, I've played 1-2-Switch heavily outside of the dock, so I have had the device undocked. Today's the first time I've used the little Joy-Con adapter, and I'm showing that to the camera for the benefit of anyone watching this on YouTube. So if you're listening on one of the podcast services, apologies, that's not a great piece of medium there for people listening audio only, but for visual people watching on YouTube, that's the device I'm referring to. So the Joy-Con dock. The little handheld controller, that's pretty good actually. I've read some really good stuff about the Pro controller, very much interested in that, but at £60 it's going to have to wait for another payday, I'm afraid. I kind of blew my load on on the Switch this side of my holiday, which was another reason for buying it actually. I'm going away for a couple of weeks and thought it'd be a great opportunity to get some good quality gaming in. So yeah, there's been a few things people pointed out. The screen scratching again, I think it's just a matter of care. I mean, I've had a look at the dock itself. It is plastic, plastic on plastic, and the screen itself isn't the most durable, but it's kept cheap, I think, to make the production of the device cheap. I think if you start putting Gorilla Glass in there and all the things that you see in modern smartphones, suddenly that cost's going to go up to the level of a smartphone. So you have to accept some shortcuts, I think. And, you know, the controllers have been great, no desyncing. The feedback through games like 1-2-Switch is fantastic. I have to say the vibration, the HD rumble is really cool. Really enjoyed that feature. Took it to work and showed a few people that. We had a few rounds on some of the sort of less physical games on 1-2-Switch, which was great. There are a chunk of games in there which are brilliant fun, and there's a chunk that you just don't like. I mean, there's one called, is it Runway? I think it's Runway. It's like a dance, sort of modelling thing, and you basically put the controller on your hip and prance up and down your living room.
Oh my god!
And you know, it's a weird thing to find yourself doing. And it's not that fun, and you don't really feel like you're getting the feedback from it. Yeah. But there's some other games in there which are hilarious, and some of them more. Funnily enough, I found the more intricate ones that revolved around the rumble or the sensitivity of the controller more satisfying than the wild sort of swinging around in my arms. So there's one on there where you put the Joy-Con down on its end, and you have to pick it up and turn it a number of rotations, and it's sort of it's all about trying to keep it perfectly flat and level, and doing as many degrees in this 360-degree turn as you can, and then you challenge your opponent to try and match that. You get 3 rounds to rack up as many degrees as possible, and then the winner is the person who turned it the most. that was so sensitive and so intricate, and it's actually quite good fun as a little party game. I could see that being a good one. But some of them, like I said, weren't so funny. Milking cows is hilarious, like staring down, especially as a bloke, staring into another man's eyes while you virtually milk a cow is as unnerving, as pathetic, and as hilarious as you expect it to be. But yeah, you know, and then
I look forward to playing that.
And then the other game that I picked up was Snipper Clips, which was a third-party sort of eShop game which I downloaded, which basically involves you taking the role of this small shape and your partner the same, in a series of intricate puzzles where you have to cut chunks out of each other to change the shape of your character, and then work together to either move an object across a screen, release traps and things like that. And that's quite good fun. But
yeah, I've seen one where people were trying to pop balloons.
Yes,
pop balloons.
Yeah, you have to make your friend into a sharp object and then bounce them into balloons. Yeah, there's a few like that. It's good fun. It's been heavily rated, heavily talked about as if it's some sort of amazing, life-changing experience. It's not.
Yeah.
It's.
I think it's just introducing the sort of different mechanics and bits and pieces that I can do with it. Maybe.
I think what it does is it sort of, and this is when you think about it. Actually, it's the first games console in God knows how long to ship with two pads, isn't it? Really, when you think about it, two control pads. Most games consoles out the box these days are single player or online only. You have to go out and buy that extra 30, 40, 50 pound controller. Whereas actually the Switch does come effectively with two pads. Now, obviously, they're nowhere near as sophisticated as the pads that we talk about on Xbox and PlayStation, but
it does enable Super Nintendo pads, aren't they?
They are really, but it allows two-player gaming out of the box, which is something that if you're buying it for a family setup or whatever, then it's great. And if you've got a friend who's got one, suddenly you've got four-player capability on one console or across two, which is pretty cool as well. So. There's a lot of good stuff to say for it. Obviously, power-wise, it's not a patch on the PlayStation or Xbox, but that portable gaming experience, I have to say, has just made me wish that I could do that on my PlayStation.
Yeah.
If I could pick up Horizon Zero Dawn, take that on the train, and play that, it'd be amazing. Absolutely amazing. Less so with multiplayer things like FIFA and shooters. I mean, I'm sure FIFA actually probably works quite well on it, and I guess, people have an opportunity to find that out when FIFA 18 launches. I personally doubt I'll buy that on the Switch because I like to play that with other people, my close friends. That's Xbox for me, really. But
there's also the online portion of it. Would it really work on the go?
Well, I guess it depends on the strength of your Wi-Fi, doesn't it? All of that comes down to.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to play it on the train, would you?
You get Wi-Fi on the train.
It's probably crap. Would it be good enough for everyone else using the Wi-Fi on the train to play FIFA? I don't know.
I'd be surprised. But I don't think it's. I think the mobile gaming side is more about getting together with other people who've got one and playing the link up. But as I said, for me, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. It hasn't. I haven't suffered any of the problems that have been reported. I'm sure I will at some point. But yeah, the docking performance for Zelda hasn't bothered me yet. The screen scratching, obviously, I've took steps to avoid anyway. But I think, to be honest, the only way you're going to scratch that is if you're really hard going with it, and you're not, take care of it. You've got to treat it like what it is. It's an expensive gadget, don't throw it around. I also think there were reports that some people, and Nintendo included, had done vigorous tests, been quite rough and ready with the console, and failed to manage to scratch it. So there is part of me that thinks, well, is that one necessarily true for everyone? I mean, there's all sorts of reported little hardware problems that you might see on any kind of hardware launch. None of them are perfect. Xbox, two generations running has suffered with various problems. I think the Xbox 360 had the Rings of Death, the overheating problem.
Yeah, I don't think that was literally when they got it, though, was there?
No.
Mind you, saying that, I think the Xbox One, they had disk drive problems.
Xbox One had the disk drive problem straight out the door for a large number of consoles. So it's not uncommon. And there's a lot going on in this tiny device. And there's a few design choices which are questionable. Where they've placed the charging dock on the bottom means you can't really use it on the kickstand and charge it. That's a small problem for some people. The lack of Bluetooth headphone support, small problem for some people. There's lots of little things you can pick at it, but you've also got to always remember, I think, the price point. And people are comparing this to what their mobile phone can do, but they forget that their mobile phone might only have cost them £100 from Phones for You or whatever. Bad choice, they've gone out of business. But
it just makes me think of Scary Mary, that does.
Yeah, but they're
Phones for You, or whatever it was.
But they're they're purchasing that at a much discounted rate. The actual hardware, if you go to Apple and buy an iPhone, is £600-700, and that's double the price of a Switch and doesn't include a dock and a controller and all these things. So comparing it to a phone or a tablet is a little unfair, really. If you wanted,
I don't think you can.
If you wanted that quality, then you'd be paying £700 or £800, and no one's going to buy that console.
Yeah,
it's not going to sell.
You don't get the. It's like on a console, I think mainly unless you buy like a second hand or a second thing to put on there, because I think you can get like little console like controllers for the phones, can't you, that you can plug in?
I've got one of the I've got a Bluetooth one for my iPad, and it's perfectly good as an Xbox 360 style controller. But you try and find a fucking game that supports it. It's impossible. Like there's just nothing. There's none of the games you want, like even simple things like the fighting games like Street Fighter, the ports of the old X-Men arcade games and stuff. None of them work. So they're all required to use touch control. So you've got this peripheral that no one supports, and whereas this, I guess at least the developers know you've got a Joy-Con. Yeah. Bare minimum, you've got that to play with. It'd be interesting to see where it goes forward. There's, as I said, there's lots of different things that they could do with this. I don't think you're ever going to see it compete with the consoles. I can't see how the third parties can port or be expected to port the sort of AAA games they're bringing to the Xbox and PlayStation to this device. It just doesn't work. There's no way you'd be able to do that. What they've got to hope is that they shift enough of these things to give the third parties a reason to make alternative games for them or scaled down games for them. So far, signs are good. I think it's sold really well.
It's sold better than the Wii, I think, wasn't it? Or the Wii, well, definitely the Wii.
It's open in weeks. It's certainly outstripped every Nintendo console by all accounts, but obviously it's got to continue that to beat some of their bigger sellers. But
I'd imagine that's just because they made enough of them this time. Where they if they made enough Wii's to go around last time, I'd imagine it'd be a different story.
Yeah, but I bet they made enough Wii U's and didn't sell them.
Well, yeah,
so
Wii U, nobody
and they'd have made enough of the GameCube and didn't sell them. So those consoles still had an audience. We'll have to wait and see. There's not a lot on it to play, but Zelda's more than enough. If that's your kind of game, if Zelda's not your kind of game, you're kind of buggered, really, because there's nothing else to play on it that's going to make you think I've spent well here. But I could see if you could sink 50 to 100 hours into Zelda, then you've got your money's worth straight away, haven't you? I'd be hard pushed to say how many games I would have sunk that sort of time into on another console. So if you can get that out of one game, you've done well, haven't you? I bet I haven't put. I imagine I put more hours into this than I did in my entire Wii U's library of history combined. I wouldn't be surprised just because of the portability. I'm already thinking about buying Mario Kart, having said I wouldn't. Just because now I've got it, I'm like, actually, I'd really enjoy playing Mario Kart in the living room with my other half, but then on the train on the way to work, or at lunchtime when I'm bored, and I could suddenly see myself being able to take these games that I've loved and not really given the attention to on the move and playing them, and that's what gives it the leg up. I think is if I can take Mario and Smash Brothers longer term and Mario Kart and all these different franchises that I love, but won't give them the time over my normal traditional home consoles, then suddenly Nintendo's sort of got a space in my life again.
Yeah. You can test the online Wi-Fi on the train with Mario Kart as well, can't you?
Well, they've brought out a demo for Splatoon 2, so I've downloaded that today, and I'm going to give that a go at some point. So, be interested to see how that stacks up.
Cool.
A couple of things that's on the Switch before we move on, because we could spend ages talking about it. I don't know if you saw the news story that apparently, and I've not tested this, and I don't intend to do it now on the podcast, that apparently Nintendo have made the games intentionally taste bad. There's a few videos knocking around the internet.
I've seen something on Kotaku about this.
One of the ones that did the rounds was Alana Pierce from IGN. She's been on lots of news outlets now, having done this quite drunk, by all accounts. I think she was unexpected fame through this video. But apparently, if you lick the front cover of the console, they're made to taste specifically nasty. And it's not like, it just happens to taste bad. Everyone I've seen do it.
Stop kids putting them in the mouth, basically?
Yeah, basically stop you from eating them because they're so bloody small.
Okay.
So, it's an interesting idea. I don't intend to try mine. I'm not that bothered. I'll take their
You're not
word
going to
for
eat it by mistake, are you, really?
Well, you could inhale this thing. They're so small, mate. Honestly, they're tiny.
Really?
Yeah. And the other thing around the Switch, and this kind of links into another story I wanted to talk about just briefly, was around one of IGN's game reviewers, actually, Vince Ingonito, who did the review for the Switch, gave it a 6.7 indicative score, and then bumped that up to a 7 once he'd tested the online functionality, which seemed like a strange move to me, given that the online offers little to nothing different to the main console, but maybe there was some pressure there to increase the score a tiny bit. But he was made redundant. He was let go by IGN shortly after the Switch had released, which seemed like a really strange move to me. And looking at Twitter and looking at the feedback, and although Vince has remained tight-lipped and hasn't said anything, a lot of people are suggesting it's in some way connected to the bad score that he gave the Switch and the backlash that received. And they got a lot of negative press, a lot of negative feedback from the community, and probably got a bit of a ticking off from a pissed off Nintendo, and they've let him go. So it could be for any other reason. He could have done something incredibly bad that none of us are aware of. Maybe he got pissed and turned up to work drunk or something. Who knows? It just seems like that wasn't something that was premeditated, because if you were going to get rid of the guy, you wouldn't have given him the year's biggest console release to review, in my opinion.
Yeah, and also, effectively, that would have to go through an editor first before it would actually see the light of day. So why hasn't he been made redundant?
Yeah, exactly. Well, who knows? And we're speculating that it's because of the Switch review.
Yeah.
Seems incredibly coincidental. Obviously, they're never going to confirm that. You follow Vince on Twitter, he might at some point confirm it. He's sort of stopped short of saying it. In fact, he did post a tweet earlier in the week, and it was on the back of a story we'll talk about on the main podcast in episode 14 coming up this week. The Matrix reboot, he tweeted out about that, and he put something along the lines of, me, do Nintendo Switch review, life hates my review, or something like that. Me, don't care, life, you got sacked or whatever it is. And then he was like, I'm not bothered about that. And then he mentioned, and then he put life, the Matrix reboot, as if the life was kicking him again, because it hadn't beaten him enough with what had gone previously. So he certainly suggested in that tweet, alluded to the idea that it was his Switch review that got him the sack, or the outcry that came after it. So if that's true, I think it's really sad. I think it's terrible that you can't have an honest opinion. And in my opinion, it was a good review. If you watch the video review, he said nothing that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Nothing that I wouldn't say is true now, having tested it. But it didn't stop me buying one. In fact, if anything, his review informed me on what I needed to know before I took the decision to spend the money.
Yeah,
and I spent
exactly.
it anyway. So, and a lot of people will be in the same boat. So I think, I get pissed off with this whole internet culture of shouting and screaming at everyone for having an opinion, and if you don't agree with it, you rip into them. And
that's effectively what a review is. And it's
going
to come to a point where, it's opinion of that person. If IGN doesn't agree with that, then they should say, don't put who's reviewed it, just put the review out there.
And I don't think necessarily that IGN would have took the decision had they not either seen the backlash from the community, or more importantly directly from Nintendo, because bear in mind they're a business, they're a media outlet, they get paid for this stuff. Mass Effect Andromeda, they're doing a huge feature on. It's not because they fancy doing it, it's because they're going to give paid for it. That's why they're doing it. And at the end of that, they might give Mass Effect a bad review. Then what happens? Do EA go, excuse me lads, we've just paid you a shit ton of money to make this content, and then you're giving it a bad review? That's not helping. You're not getting the next game that you want. Do you know what I mean? That they've got that balance to strike, haven't they? So they're not always independent. Which then brings me neatly on to another controversial exit from a gaming outlet that you may or may not know about. So if you're aware of Kinda Funny, they're a group that were founded by a few ex-IGN employees, Greg Miller, Colin Moriarty, Nick Scarpino, and Tim Geddes. Now those guys, there's probably some more people behind the scenes. I only know the faces that I see on the YouTube channel as that's where I watch them. Those guys left IGN, broke off, made their own. I guess they're not the same as IGN. They're not a gaming outlet in the way that IGN are, but they made their own gaming channel. They continued podcasts that they ran at IGN, and they've done a YouTube video, a series of YouTube videos, in fact. And this week, Colin Moriarty is one of the founders, was backed into a corner and resigned. The official statement is it's because he and the rest of the guys at the company were going in different directions, but it came suspiciously close and off the back of a huge piece of controversy that he whipped up on Twitter around the Women's Day, International Women's Day. So International Women's Day, obviously to celebrate women in industry and in life in general, and lots of companies were tweeting out about the women that they employ and how special they are, which is, it's brilliant, absolutely support that. There was one branch of women, sort of almost like a cult on Twitter, who created this hashtag, a day without women, or a day without a woman. And the idea was that they were encouraging women not to go into work, not to do their normal things at home, and to basically let men suffer and see how much we need women. Now, obviously, we're not going to get into a dispute over men and women and sexism. I'm not interested in that whatsoever. Yeah. But the hashtag was something along the lines of a day without a woman. So Colin Moriarty, quite clearly a joke, in my opinion at least, tweeted out, peace and quiet, hashtag a day without a woman. And the internet went mental. He got, not just like random trolls, but people he used to work with at IGN were tweeting him things saying how disrespectful it was. And I just thought, it's so obviously a joke. Like, he's not being funny. And if anything, he's just having a bit of a bash at this sort of, this small group of women who wanted to take International Women's Day to another level of craziness, really, and turn it into some sort of like anti-men campaign, which is not what it's for. It's to promote women, not to slam men. So it was a really weird thing to happen. He got loads of backlash to the point where he withdrew from the panel that the Kinda Funny guys were doing at PAX East. So the other guys went alone. Greg Miller released a statement saying that it was in bad taste. He doesn't support it, which is a little bit of a joke coming from him because he makes some seriously outlandish comments sometimes. Again, they're a joke, so you've got to take them as what they meant, as they're a joke. But yeah, he basically resigned about a day or so later. Jacked it in. He's gone off to do other things. Apparently, he's got lots of offers coming in, which is great because he seems like a very intelligent bloke, very opinionated. But that's what you need on this sort of, these sort of channels. Isn't no one's going to watch?
Yeah, well, I think that's just what you need on the internet these days.
Yeah,
sometimes it rubs people up the wrong way, and everyone jumps on the bandwagon, and then it just snowballs.
Definitely, you need some extreme views in order to create conversation. But anyway, he's moved on. I just thought it was a real shame. Both of them seem to have suffered at the hands of trolls and internet oversensitivity. I mean, no, you can't make a joke anymore. It's a good job no one watches these videos we produce because at some point, if anybody ever does watch them, we'll probably come under the same sort of stick
Man's
as well.
Day.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get some stick at some point. We can all become
international men of mystery.
In fact, I'd almost like to reach a point where people actually give a shit about what we say and actually want to have a go at us. No one really cares. So it's fine at the moment. But yeah, so I wanted to just bring that up, and we'll move on now from Switch. Let's leave that in the past. Let's move on to something entirely different. Xbox Game Pass. Going to jump us into that direction, Carl. What do you think, and what did you think of that service? So, do you know what the details are behind it? Do you want to just brief us on that?
Effectively, it reminds me of the days of what was it called now? Love Film, where you could get games sent to you.
Yeah.
But obviously, these are all digital, and they've got a library of games that you can just use. It's like PS Now, which is going to have PS4 games soon. Because I think originally it had PS3 games and possibly PS Vita games. Obviously, Xbox has jumped on the bandwagon there, and I never really used PlayStation Now. I think I might have had it for a month or so.
I should just stop you there. They're not jumping on the bandwagon. It's a different service. So PS Now,
it's effectively the same thing, isn't it? Really?
Well, no. PS Now is a streaming service, so you don't download the games. And the reason PS Now struggles is there's a latency issue between you're inputting the command on your machine and it actually processing it that server side and feeding back to you. So that's why, as a service, it's not really worked yet. It's the same reason On Live died. This Game Pass allows you to download the game to your local machine and play it for the duration of the time that either you subscribe to the service or that it remains in the library. So that's the differentiator. And you can have as many as you like. It's not sort of narrowed down to one or two games. So the basic details that they've put out, and this is only early days, is it's $7.99 a month or $9.99 if you're in America. So a huge discrepancy in price there, but then we always get fucked over. It's Xbox One and Xbox 360 games. They've talked about a lineup of games so far from 2K, 505 Games, Bandai Namco Entertainment, Capcom Codemasters, Deep Silver, Focus Home, Interactive, Sega, SNK, THQ, and Warner Brothers. Some of those game titles including Halo 5, Payday 2, NBA 2K16, Soul Calibur 2, and a whole load more. And apparently Phil Spencer said there'll be access to over 100 Xbox One and 360 games at launch. Every month you'll see games cycle in and out, although he has confirmed on a podcast with IGN that when they say cycle out, that will be very, very rare. Their view is that unlike Netflix, where things come and go quite frequently, games will come and go less frequently. Games will be added and the service will expand, but they'll take things away less and less, basically because the only reason they can see things coming off the service are for those people, for those games where there's licensing issues, time periods that the developers simply can't offer that for, stuff like that. They're also saying as part of this you'll get a 20% discount off the Xbox One game and 10% off any of its DLC for the duration that you have the Game Pass. So if at the end of that period that they're going to take it away, you want to carry on playing, you get a 20% discount on buying that game digitally to keep that service going, to keep that game in your library and solidify it in your library, basically. So,
if I had a 20% discount on a game that costs £50 by the time that it comes off the library, even though they said it doesn't come off very often, I'd probably be able to buy that game at about a 50% discount.
Probably, but they're not saying you have to buy it through them.
It's not digital then, is it really? No,
you buy it wherever you want to buy it. I think they're just making an offer in there to help, I guess, promote that. I think it's an interesting thing. So I'll give you a couple of reasons why I think this is good. First of all, I think if you've just got into a console, so this isn't going to be new games. You're not going to get the latest games. Although they have said that they like the idea of straight to Netflix style games, that some games could go straight to the Game Pass service in the future.
Yeah, they'll probably be like arcade games, I'd imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, that's still an interesting concept, though, isn't it? Because then it becomes a service like Netflix. I mean, most people now who've got Netflix would probably not give it up, even though it costs, even if they're not using it heavily, for the sort of $7.99 it costs them a month or whatever it is at the moment. It's not massively expensive. And it's just a comfort thing to have, just to browse through and flick through and have a look at. And you'll watch old things and you'll watch new things. And I guess that's the idea of this, isn't it? Is that you'll play old games if you want to, and you'll play new ones. And if you've just gotten into the Xbox One ecosystem and you haven't got loads of cash, there's a few good services out there now. You've already got EA Access, which gets you a whole batch of games. And this is just another one you can add to that list, isn't it? You pay $7.99, you've got access to all these games that you can just pick up and play at your leisure. It's a small outgoing. Well, you got to download them first, but it's a small outgoing.
Take 5 hours.
Well, yeah, it's a small outgoing, really, compared to the price of a new game. You think for 50 quid or 40 quid, you've got 4 or 5 months membership there, and you can play any of those games that you like. And I think the other good thing for me is that the developer side of things. The biggest challenge that the developing community face at the moment, which Microsoft, I guess, is trying to help out here as well, is that they don't see any value, any resale value in games, physical games. You buy a game, 50 quid, brand new, small portion goes to game. You buy the same game second hand from game, all the money goes to game. And the developer sees absolutely none of it. So I guess from that perspective, it's another way to try and kill the used game market, keep games in an ecosystem they can control, and they'll make money. The developer's always making money. They're probably going to be paid in the same way that music people get paid for Spotify and stuff like that, is that they'll get paid for how many people download it, how many people play it, how many hours they play for, that sort of stuff. It's not been made public yet, but I think it's a really interesting concept, and I think it's completely separate to games with gold, which I think makes sense. Although you could absolutely see them merging these things in the future. It's not going to take away from the free games with gold that you get. I think it's a really interesting offering. I don't think that it, for you or I, who generally buys new, buys up front, I don't think it's been something we're necessarily going to jump on. But I don't think it's necessarily for us. But equally, let's imagine that Xbox 2, whatever the next Xbox is going to be called, or later iterations.
Xbox 3, effectively, wouldn't you, really?
Well, Xbox 4. This is Xbox 3.
Yeah, it is. That's right.
So, whatever the next Xbox is going to be called, if they keep this process up, which they've done with the Xbox 360 games being backwards compatible and the Xbox One games, suddenly you get your Xbox 4, whatever it is, and you log in, set yourself up, buy the download, the pass. You've got all the same games. You carry on that library over, and then you've suddenly got access to this whole world of new stuff again. So it's keeping you in the ecosystem, isn't it? Keeps you interested, keeps you there. All your save games are still stored even when you don't have the game anymore or the Game Pass. So if you do cancel it, you can still just pick it up and play. In the future, go back to it, buy it in a month's time, and go, actually, I miss playing that, and all your save games are still there. So I think I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I don't think you can lose, really. It's not really aimed at you or me, but
I'd be interested to give it a trial.
Well,
give people a trial. I'd imagine they will.
I think for $7.99 a month, people are going to take that up. No question. There'll be a lot of people who are just getting their consoles now, and it's another selling point, isn't it? Let's say someone comes to you tomorrow who's not a gamer like we are and says, "Carl, what games console should I buy?" It's another argument for Xbox, isn't it? You now sit there and go, well, you could buy the PS4 for all these reasons, and you could buy an Xbox One for all these reasons. Which one do you go with? And I just think that the Xbox One more and more now is offering a wider library of things that you can do, especially for that sort of entry level person coming into it fresh, who's maybe not, had one for a number of years now. Xbox One S, pretty cheap, small, compact, powerful system, 4K Blu-ray. $7.99 a month. You've got a whole library of games to play, so your kids can play a limitless number of games. I think that's great, personally. But anyway,
yeah, I'm interested to see. Have they given a release date or anything for it?
Just rereading the press release. They've announced it. It doesn't seem to suggest exactly when it's going to happen.
Because I know E3 is not far off, is it? So I want to imagine we'll get some
can't
more,
be a million miles off now, to be honest. E3 is going to be heavily focused on Scorpio, isn't it? You'd expect.
Yeah. It might be a Scorpio thing, maybe. We'll see.
Well, if I don't think you're buying a Scorpio though to play Payday 2, are you?
No, definitely not. Or
We'll
NBA
see.
2K16.
True.
Which was a good game.
So, let's move on to another announcement from another large player in the gaming world, Twitch, and Twitch Pulse. Tell me about it.
It's basically Twitter for Twitch, or Twitcher.
Twitcher.
They could call it Twitcher. Yeah.
Probably got legal ramifications.
Yeah, probably. They'll have some. It's basically just used for people connecting with their streamers and streamers connecting with their fans or their followers and stuff. Be a lot easier. Obviously, with Twitter, you've got everyone else on there, and it gets put. If you send a tweet out saying that you're streaming or whatever, it could get lost with another million tweets of just utter eating fish or whatever.
You get a lot of that, a lot of fish eaters on your Twitter.
Oh no, well, yeah, I don't really use Twitter that much, to be honest. It's never something that I've used.
No,
other than recently with Boss Battle.
I'm the same. I use it for our network. I don't use it hugely personally. Keep it for that. But I think this is if you're a heavy Twitch user, and I know you probably watch a lot more than I do, I would say, on Twitch. Obviously, we stream on it, but in terms of watching it, I don't have the time that you do. And I know you get a lot of hype about games that have just come out, don't you, from watching them on Twitch, and that tends to lead you to buy things in the same way that hype on news outlets tends to push me to buy things.
Yeah, I only watch. I sort of just browse a little bit, and I think this isn't really going to affect me too much, really, because I think I'll use it for when we stream, but I don't really interact with the people. I'm what's called a lurker. So I'll just sit there and watch. I won't try and say, "Oh, you're rubbish. Oh, I'm a troll." Blah blah blah.
No, but if you have favourites that you like to watch stream, then I guess what you can now do is follow them and see their activity more clearly through the Twitch Pulse stream of content. So I guess you can keep up to date with who's going live and when and what they're doing and and some
the Twitch app does that for me anyway. It tells me when they're coming up.
But it's all going. I'm assuming this is going into the Twitch app. There's not a lot of information out there at the moment. I think it's only browser based at the moment.
Yeah, it's only on the front page.
Yeah, there's not an app or anything for it yet. So it's launching for everyone middle of this month. So it's more than likely out as we speak.
I haven't seen anything yet.
No, I haven't seen anything, but that's what the video trailer said, and we've got that on our YouTube video now. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll have seen that running in the background. If you're listening to us on a podcasting service, then check us out, Boss Battle Network on YouTube, and you'll be able to see that advert, or just Google it. Don't bother looking at us, just Google it. So Twitch Pulse, I think it's an interesting one. So, couple of things left then to talk about, Carl. We've got Mass Effect or Horizon Zero Dawn. Where do you want to go?
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Horizon Zero Dawn. So, my very quickly, just to say, I haven't played anywhere near as much as Carl, even though I did get it at launch. I have done an unboxing for the Collector's Edition, so if you're interested in having a look at the Aloy statue that came with that and the other bits and pieces involved in that, then have a look on our channel on YouTube and you'll be able to see that video. So Carl, go on then, tell me about it. What did you think?
Well, obviously can't spoil too much because you're still playing it. But...
Well, you shouldn't spoil it for anybody else who's listening either.
Well, no, obviously. So I'm not going to go into any specifics, but it's brilliant. I think the lore and the gameplay and just everything about it, I think it makes an absolute amazing film. But there's parts in the game where I'm just sort of looking around. I'm like walking and taking it so slow, going through all these like the ruins and stuff, and looking for these collectibles just to read some more. Normally in these type of games where they've got collectibles that sort of read through the story and stuff, I just like, yeah, whatever. But these, I was trying to find everyone to read little bits about it because it was just so interesting. It was really cool.
They have created a fascinating world, I have to say. That was my takeaway from the first probably 9 or 10 hours that I've played. Was that they're the same as you. Normally in these sort of open games, I get really, GTA and stuff, I get really pissed off with all the side quests. I just want to get the main story done and get that out of the way. Whereas actually in this, I was enjoying the gameplay so much, and the robot dinosaurs thing ticks a massive box for me. I love sort of post-apocalyptic, futuristic worlds, and what this game does, it tells you absolutely nothing, does it, about what's happened and why everything's gone. And 1,000 years on, the Earth has reclaimed all of our cities, and dinosaurs are made of, robot dinosaurs are now roaming the Earth. It tells you nothing. It just throws you in as this, young brave in a tribe, with your own sort of individual sort of personal struggles, and as that opens up, you start to find out more and more. And as you said, these little clues you pick up, the little diary notes, the audio blocks that you find, and it just starts to fill in the blanks, and you starting to piece together that story. Now you've finished the campaign. How many hours did you stick into it?
Oh, I have no idea. A lot. Probably. Well, if you think you've stuck about 9 in,
I reckon I put it at 9 so far. Yeah,
I've probably tripled that.
See, I think it's a 30 or 40 hour game.
Yeah,
if you
easily.
just run through it. So you said that you were looking for side stuff. I mean, how much do you think you've missed? Is it?
Oh, there's a lot of side stuff I haven't done. I haven't done any of the hunting grounds. The only side things I did were the what they're called now. There's the tall necks, which were quite easy, and then there's the cauldrons, which obviously let you override the different animals, well, robots. Obviously, I did those because I felt those were going through ruins to a certain extent, and they were just adding to the game in a way, because it was like trying to puzzle together why these are getting made and that and the other. But yeah, I didn't do much more side quests other than that.
Okay.
And it got to a point where I was doing this, I thought, oh, I'm coming to the end of this now. That's quite. Oh no, more. Oh, and then another one. Oh, okay. And and then I got to the end sort of late one night, and I thought, I want more. And ironically, I'm just looking at an article now saying that there is more that they didn't add in the game now, but there's going to be like add-ons for it.
There's a season pass, isn't there? So there's a DLC. There's the DLC that's coming out for that. It's interesting that you managed to do the whole thing without having to do a hunting grounds once, or there was almost like there was no need to do that. Because I spent a bit of time fiddling around with one of those, and sounds like I didn't need to. So interesting. I might have to look at that then. But I mean, personally, I think visually it's one of the best looking games, if not the best looking game I've seen. We'll use the sort of tedious link into the Mass Effect stuff in a minute. The facial expressions weren't brilliant, were they? But other than that, the grass, the environments. I mean, I think that's the biggest one for me is the grass. It sounds stupid, but you're sitting amongst that long grass, and that grass it just blows around you really naturally. The shorter grass, the environments, the trees. It just feels so alive. It's
the weather effects as well, I find. And there's one point where I'm walking along, or running along, or I'm riding along on something, and there's this light coming through, and it just looks amazing. And I think, wow, is there something over there that's creating that light? I know it's just like the light reflecting off the sun, off the snow and stuff. And it looks brilliant. You
should explore the photo mode. Apparently, that's quite good. I've not done it myself, but you can turn all the hood off and you can go and.
I did look at that.
Posed pictures and stuff.
There was this one point where I killed someone, and it was like a stealth kill, and the arrow was in their head, but their knee was sort of up, and it looked a bit weird. I tried to take a photo of that, but I went into photo mode. I could do loads of things, and it said loads of things on the bottom of the screen, focus, this, that, and the other, but it didn't tell me how to actually take the photo. So I looked for a little bit.
I think it wants you to use your share button, doesn't it, on the actual PS4?
Oh, really? Well, it never told me that. So
I think because it stores it to your PlayStation, so I think it's just the share button, just takes a picture.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. So okay. I felt a bit silly. I was like, okay, so I'm going to. There's loads of these modes, and I don't know how to take this picture, and I'm bored, so I'm moving on. Yeah, it is actually the fastest selling first party PS4 game yet.
Yeah, I mean it's done fantastically well.
2.6 million copies in the first 2 weeks.
I wouldn't be surprised if it sold a few PS4s as well. To some Xbox fans who would have looked at that. And it's amazing to think they came from the studio that made the last few Killzone games. The first one or two were great. The last couple were bloody awful. and they've pulled that out of the bag. Amazing, really. Fantastic.
The game's producer has got a cool name. It kind of sounds like a Marvel villain or a hero. Samrat Sharma.
Okay.
That just sounds like some sort of...
Sounds like someone Doctor Strange would battle.
Yeah.
So our last thing then today for this episode, as it's turning to be a fairly long one, Mass Effect Andromeda. So the main reason I added this to the list is that there's been a bit of stick in the last week or so about the quality of the facial expressions and animation, and this is something that's not just come from internet trolls or YouTubers trying to get clicks. It's actually come from the gaming outlets as well. They've expressed some concerns about how the faces don't seem to react. They feel very rigid. And what I'm showing on the YouTube video here, if you're watching us on YouTube, is a clip that another YouTuber made of basically comparing the current game graphics to the same graphics from the 10-year-old version from 2007, the first Mass Effect, and they literally haven't changed. In fact, if anything, arguably the original game looks slightly more human than these new ones do. Obviously the textures and stuff have moved on and are visually better, but the actual animation and the life in that face isn't there at all. And they did put it against a few other games from 2017, and it made a very valid point that they don't look very human. Now, obviously this game's vast. It's a huge exploration, space and God knows what else. So you've got to give them some credit and some leeway, I suppose, for the amount of information they've got to put into this, and the amount of work that goes into a game. But for a game that is so heavily driven on interactions and relationships with other characters, it's a little bit worrying that they don't feel very real.
Yeah, I'm just looking at like a comparison thing on Kotaku right now, and it's got like one picture from 2017 and one picture from 10 years ago, 2007.
That's the same video, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, they don't look very good. And from what you were saying about Horizon Zero Dawn, I think the character models look great, and they do have a certain amount of expressions in their faces. But the one thing that annoyed me is the fact that for some bits you've got cutscenes, but for these conversations back and forth with people, they have to stand still. They can't move.
Yeah, which
kind of annoyed me a little bit. And there's points on in the game where you can ask these questions, but there's points where you can only ask one question, and I'm like, well, why are you making me select one question I can ask? Just ask it.
Play the story,
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a small concern. Obviously, we played the first three together, or you played and I watched for the majority of it, which is our usual way of working through these games. I'm there Googling what to do next if we get stuck. But are you excited for Andromeda? Is it on your radar with so much stuff out at the moment?
It's on my radar, but it's not something I'm going to buy now.
No. Well, unless you watch loads of people play it on Twitch and then you decide to go out and buy it.
No, I think even then. Plus, I don't really want to watch much of Andromeda because a lot of that will be story focused in ways. Apparently, so what I tend to do with story focused stuff when I watch it on Twitch is I zone in and out, or I'll watch 5 minutes of one person, 5 minutes of another. And if I see some sort of story, I'll turn it off and put something else on.
Okay, I mean it's interesting if you look at the some of the feedback that IGN have been putting out there, and specifically one of their journalists, Destin Legere. He's a massive Mass Effect fan. Apparently he's played the third one. He's reckoned 20 or 30 times or something absurd like that. He's played it an awful lot. And I
don't think the third one was that good.
Well, I liked it. I still enjoyed it.
I liked it, but I wouldn't play it 30 times.
The gameplay was still the best of the three, but the story just lacked a little bit. But his only feedback was the first hour or so is a little hammy, a little cheesy story-wise, but then it does get a lot better. So I think it'll be interesting to see how many of these sort of reviewers who do 10 minutes of gameplay then give it a score will fall foul of that, and how many will actually get properly stuck into it and give a genuine score from getting through it, and properly experiencing everything it's got to offer. Again, apparently it's vast. The universe is huge.
Yeah,
I don't see it scoring as well as some of its other rivals at the moment. I don't think it's going to get close to Horizon. It won't touch Zelda. I don't think it's going to worry any of those games. But if you're a Mass Effect fan and you're looking for that next Mass Effect fix, this is probably the one for you. And I think it'd be interesting to see. I'd like to see it played through. I have no intention of playing it myself, but I'd be looking forward to seeing you play it on stream if you decide to get it. And is it moved ahead of Neo for you? Because that's still on your shopping list. No,
definitely not.
No.
So the thing I thought when I first seen some of the gameplay for it, I thought it looks very Destiny, like all these people jumping about. Where Mass Effect, you weren't flying here, there, and everywhere, shooting laser beam at your eyes and stuff.
They put a jetpack in, haven't they? But apparently it's well executed, so that might allay some fears.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it is well executed, but it doesn't feel like that would be Mass Effect. It feels like it would be something different.
We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully it differentiates itself and doesn't tarnish the original 3, because I really liked the first 3. I thought they were a really solid series. Cool. Well, I think that's the end of everything we plan to talk about on this episode. So thanks for tuning in to this. If you're listening on a podcasting service, make sure that you subscribe for more of the same. We do try and do these weekly where we can, and we also do a fortnightly podcast which covers movies, TV, and gaming as well. So a more general podcast for you there. And if you're watching us on YouTube, then again, please like and subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you thought. We'd love to hear your feedback. Until next time, though, Carl, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, I'm good.
Brilliant. In that case, thanks very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.